What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hardwood Convos here on the 515 Podcast Network. I'm Brock Beirman alongside with Hunter Rose today, going to recap pretty much the first round of the NBA playoffs. Right now, as we're recording here, we're actually recording here on a Friday night, May 3rd, and about 33 seconds away from the Dallas Mavericks punching their ticket to the conference semifinals. I know Hunter's very excited about that. I mean, anybody that loves kind of cheering against the Clippers loves that, as well as, Hunter's been on the Mavericks pretty much since day one. So, of course, he's going to be celebrating that one. But we're going to recap some of the games. Of course, we will be dumb to mention that there is still a round one game going on between the Cavaliers and Magic, or at least the series is still going on. It's heading to a game 7. I mean, Hunter, you said that this game, if you love sickos basketball, to watch this series, and man, it has lived up to the hype.
Yeah, this was disgusting basketball. First of all, I called the sweep, and I'm happy my Magic proved me wrong. But yeah, literally those first 4 games were just the nastiest things I've ever seen. I think that both the first 2 games in Cleveland, because it's been all home teams winning, first of all, which is always fun, I guess. But literally like under 100 for both teams for the first 2 games. And then game 3 and game 4, the Magic like blow them out. I think they scored like 120 and then like 110 to like 80 or 90. It's like, oh my gosh. And then we got that game 5 that was exciting. And even game 6 was pretty exciting that they just had. But I think Donovan like scored like 50 or something like that, and then ended up still losing though, because I think the Magic, like their kind of core guys, scored like over 70 points altogether. Which shout out Paulo, man. Shout out Paulo. He's balling now.
He's been balling in the conference, Eastern Conference side of the things of the playoffs. I think he's almost averaging, almost 25 points a game in the postseason so far for him. And I mean, he's proven that he's going to become a star. I mean, I think he's a borderline star already in the NBA. Oh, yeah. It's just that let's be honest, it's the Orlando Magic that may lower his stock on how much people talk about him. But he's proven to people right now that he is a name that people need to at least remember in years to come. And I mean, I personally, obviously, as a Celtics fan, would like the Magic to pull off this upset here in Game 7. I think Game 7 is on Sunday?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so Sunday, the Magic will go to Cleveland looking to complete the upset. I mean, it's the 4-5 matchup. I don't know how big of an upset it really is, but still, as a Celtics fan, who the Celtics defeated the Heat 4-1 in the first round of the 1-8 matchup in the Eastern side of things, I would love to see the Magic match up against the Celtics, just because honestly, it's a good matchup, but at the same time, I think the Celtics have a better chance of getting out of there quickly versus going up against Cleveland, where Donovan Mitchell can carry a team to a win.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think overall, especially with missing Porzingis, I think that'll hurt a lot too, especially with like a Cleveland matchup. Obviously, the thing that they got going for them is that they can space the floor. Obviously, I mean, Al Horford still spaces the floor. I'm guessing he'll be the guy that steps in. But it'll still be tough not having him, especially defensively. I mean, Horford's still a good defender for how old he is, honestly, but Porzingis just has that length.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Porzingis did get hurt in game 4 of the first round matchup between the Celtics and the Heat, and pretty much is going to be out until the conference finals from the sounds of it, which, hey, that sounds way better than what it was going to be, or at least it looked like. It appeared it was an Achilles injury, so the fact that he's even going to be available or potentially available in the conference finals if the Celtics make it that far is a good sign for them. And I mean, when you look at their roster, though, without Porzingis, it's pretty much. I mean, Drew Holiday and Marcus Smart have a lot of similarities. They do have some big differences, really, with how they play. But there's some how they're fit into the Celtics roster. There's some similarities with how they play and how they work with that roster. Porzingis being out is basically like Robert Williams being out last year. So, in my opinion, it's not anything for the Celtics to really worry about right now, because it's the same roster as last year in the playoffs, minus Grant Williams and Marcus Smart, but you also added Drew Holiday. Luke Cornett is able, I mean, he's not going to put up amazing numbers. He's going to do enough. He knows his role, and he's able to produce for the Celtics. And that's another reason why I think the Magic would be a better matchup for the Celtics right now, just because Jared Allen, I think, could potentially have a good matchup against Horford because Horford can get in the foul trouble. I mean, shout out Bam Adebayo. I feel like one thing that people won't give him a lot of credit for is he was trying to get Porzingis in the foul trouble. And that one game that they did win, I think that was game 2, got Porzingis in the quick foul trouble. And that was a big reason why the Heat were able to win. Of course, game 2, they hit 23 threes, 53% from the three-point line, which
Crazy.
I can't explain to you how many times I have seen the Heat just go unbelievable from behind the three-point line against Boston. But I will say that series was a little underwhelming compared to what I thought it was going to be heading into it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are on that. I think at the end of the day, like, I mean, coming from obviously a Bucks fan that they lost as the 1 seed last year, it's like it is a 1 seed versus an 8 seed. The Heat don't have Jimmy Butler. I honestly, even with Jimmy Butler, just the way the games were going, I really don't know exactly. Like, I don't know how much it would change, especially with Tyler Hero just not performing nearly as well, especially in those last few games, or at least especially game 5. I think just did not seem to do all that well, in my opinion. But yeah, it's basically Bam trying to do whatever he could, and that's just not enough to beat a team like the Celtics.
They always talk about heat culture. They don't need the star players to be able to compete. And in years past, yeah, that's been the case. They've made finals off of rosters similar to this one. But what's next for them? Because Jimmy's getting up there in age. Bam obviously wants to get to the point where he can win a title. Anyone wants to win a title, but he's definitely shown that he really is dedicated to getting that championship at some point. Terry Rozier has been an injury issue for them this year. I don't know I can't remember his contract situation, if he's already guaranteed next year with them or not. Tyler Hero struggled big time against the Celtics in a couple of games. Caleb Martin's struggled a couple times. But what, in your opinion, what's next for the Miami Heat? Is there really a way that they could be a contender again?
I think that's the tough thing because, like Jimmy Butler is what, 34, 35 now?
And he just signed a 2-year extension, right?
Yep. So I got pulled up here. So he has a player option come 25, 26, which I would take if I'm him because it's a $52 million year as a 36-year-old at that point. There's no reason not to. Outside of that, I mean, a lot of the guys they still have on payroll, but for a couple of years at least. But like, if I'm being honest, if you want to win now, you have to start thinking. The whole Tyler Hero thing, in my opinion, you got to move on. We saw now with this in this playoffs now, it got returned. Shout out cold takes of like, oh, Tyler Hero for the Dame trade isn't good enough.
Yep.
Here we are. And so especially, yeah, like even though he didn't play, obviously you want to see a guy like Jimmy Butler who is somewhat of a playoff riser to stick around. You still have hope and confidence in that, especially since he didn't play at all. Bam still being young enough to do things. I think you have to keep him. Jaime being good enough, even Jovic being good enough. But it's like outside of that, it's like you have to retool everything. There's just no way.
Do you think Tyler Hero's there next year?
As a Heat hater, I hope. As a Heat, if I am the Heat, though, I would not. Honestly, I would be even if you don't ship him out, you have to aggressively be like, what can we get for you? Like, you can't just stick with it and be like, he's untouchable. You can't do that anymore.
And I'm trying to think of someone that would like be a great fit for them to go after this offseason that would reasonably be on the market heading into the offseason. I mean, Jimmy Butler kind of demands the ball. Like he's not necessarily a catch and shoot kind of guy. He's more of a pull up from mid range inside. Never been a huge 3-point threat. And so because of that, I wanted to say Trae Young would be a good person that they should consider going after. I mean, Trae Young is going to be anybody's best bet to get this offseason. He's kind of in my opinion, the spot that Damian Lillard was in last year, where I feel like it's time. It's just time to rip the Band-Aid off and reset for both him and the Hawks. And I wanted to say he would be a good fit with the Heat. Well, one, I don't think the Hawks will ever trade a star player like that to it, even though we don't really talk about divisions that much, but an interdivision team. At the same time, I don't think Trae Young would. I don't know if Trae Young would fit well with that team because Jimmy Butler demands the ball a lot, and Trae Young is a huge distributor in the NBA.
Yeah. It'd have to almost turn. You'd almost have to do more of an offense. I mean, you could say this about any offense because of how perfect they were, but just in how like Golden State would run their offense, where it's like you just got to see Trae running around using all these Bam Adebayo illegal screens to get open off the ball. That would literally have to be it. And then you run into the problem. He's the only guy that can do that. At least with the Warriors, they still had Clay. They still had, KD when he was there, still had even Harrison Barnes, even though he wasn't, the best shooter ever. But still, it's like they had people that it worked around. You're literally running that offense just for Trae Young, and that's not going to be good enough again. But that's an interesting thing, though, that I saw, too. I think it was like at the beginning of this season, like before it started, Pat Riley even commented about how the window is closing. And he's like, if we don't get results, like he kind of hinted at the idea of just almost blowing everything up and being like, we're going to have to like change things up to win, which is a good sign. If you're a Heat fan, that's a good sign to have a GM and an owner right there to be like, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. So,
yeah. And the worst thing, and we've talked about this with Tyler Hero and the Damian Lillard trade. Last year, that Damian Lillard trade would have been perfect for them because now I don't think Tyler has as big of a draw, or I don't even know if last year they had a huge draw really for Tyler Hero outside of the Heat. The Heat do like to promote him as like this elite talent, and he can be in stretches, but when he's cold, he cannot hit the bucket worth a damn. And so it'll be interesting to see if they try to move on from him or if they try to move other pieces. I mean, Caleb Martin, the really only thing that he's been able to do is destroy the Celtics. In this series, he had one, maybe two good games, and he showed signs of, mortality. Like it just not. He's human. He can't just automatically kill the Celtics every time.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see because that franchise has a lot of decent pieces. Not one of them, in my opinion, even Jimmy Butler, because you mentioned he's up there in age. He's not LeBron, where he's going to be competing at the same level he was 2 years ago as he is getting older and older. But yep, the Heat fall 1-4, 4-1 series win for the Celtics. They'll play the winner of that Cavs Magic game that's going to Game 7 on Sunday. Do we want to talk about your Bucks, or do we want to talk about the Knicks first?
I honestly, if it weren't my own fault and why we're recording at 11:30, I would love to go into the Bucks and rant on for half an hour, and not about the Bucks even. I'm honestly this series out of all the past few years since the Bucks have been very, very relevant and at the top of the East, this year's the one year where I'm like, all right, like things just didn't plan out. It just didn't happen. I'm very upset with the Pacers. I'm very upset with Tyrese Halliburton for reasons I will get into in the future, I'm sure. I'm very upset and appalled at how the NBA media is approaching the Bucks after this. It is absolutely absurd.
Are you referring to the Patrick Beverley situation?
No, well,
situation.
half of that, where I think, you got Draymond Green commenting on it, like calling the freaking kettle black right there as the pot. But no, more so, you have guys like Stephen A. Smith. They're like, the Bucks should look to trade Damian Lillard, which is an absolutely absurd comment to make. I've heard other people, like he's obviously doing it for attention, right? There are actual people whose opinions that I value on Twitter that like make really, really good content. There's one guy that full on said the Damian Lillard trade was a disaster. How are you going to say that? How are you going to say that when like none of the team played? Like Damian Lillard played fantastic, and Chris Middleton played fantastic, and Giannis didn't even touch the floor. You're gonna be calling it a disaster already? That's absurd.
Can I play? And this is not. I'm not saying I agree with that person. Can I play devil's advocate real quick?
Let's hear it.
I wonder how many people that believe that or say that is more on the side of the Bucks gave up Drew Holiday that he's now on the Celtics. Granted, there were some games, and you mentioned it, you warned it, so I was ready for the Drew Holiday postseason experience. He had some good games though, which surprised me a little bit. And I wonder if it's more of people are upset that Drew Holiday is now on a championship contending. Not that makes the Bucks sound bad. Let me rephrase that. That he's on the championship contender this year versus a championship contender like the Bucks would have been this year, even with him or with Damian Lillard. And I mean, in your opinion, I would like to know, like, do you think the Bucks would have given up Drew Holiday if they would have known that he would have ended up getting shipped back to the East?
I think so, just because, I mean, if you trade Drew Holiday, I mean, at the time, Drew Holiday, the Blazers, everyone was kind of like, all right, like, it's not stopping. Like, Drew Holiday is not staying in Portland. There's no way.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of knew, because even, like, all the Bucks fans that I follow all the time were like, oh, yeah, he's probably, I mean, worst case scenario, he ends up on the Celtics, or like the Heat, for example. He's probably going to make it back somewhere, on some contending team.
That's a good point.
I think to rebuttal to that, though, because I do think that's probably where the mindset is. I think the problem is that it's literally looking at it half-sided, where it's like, okay, Drew Holiday's here. Where would the Bucks have been in this playoff series if it were Drew Holiday instead of Damian Lillard? And I think I can confidently say the Bucks probably would have lost in that game 5 or potentially even swept, depending on Chris's health at the time, because they probably would have just stopped with him after that.
And I mean, I'll keep it 100 with you. I don't know if the Bucks are a 3 seed if Drew Holiday was there and Damian Lillard was. And then even if that happens, I don't know who the Bucks would have even stood a chance in this in this field of teams, given that Giannis was out, Chris had his injury issues. If Drew Holiday was the guy, and like you mentioned, this is the first time where I was like, it wasn't necessarily because the Bucks failed. It was more just the cards weren't dealt the way that they probably wished they would have this year. And because of that, everybody's blowing it out of proportion. I will say the Patrick Beverley thing, not the podcast, the refusing to take a question because the person's not subscribed to the podcast. Was that rude? Yeah, but like you got to understand this guy is very passionate about sports. And so like the one thing that he doesn't want to do is like talk to the media after a loss. No player wants to, whether people admit it or not. And so he was his emotions were probably high. Anything could have set him off, whatever. The thing that did irk me a little bit was the chucking of the ball at Pacers fans. I get the point. I think there's rumors that the person said Cancun on 3 as the Bucks were breaking the huddle. It's a fan though, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a messy situation.
Yeah, I agree. I will say there is a journalistic failure in that a certain tweet was sent out by a certain individual that it's mentioned like the Cancun on 3 thing. Then if you actually pay for the article and scroll all the way down to the bottom, they include a little fun fact in one sentence that allegedly the fan was talking a little bit more and mentioning some certain things that probably should not be said to any human being.
Does that shock me? No.
Yeah. Shout out Indiana. Great place.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, you can get whatever you want this offseason as a Bucks fan, realistically, obviously. What would you want for the Bucks to do?
Brooke Lopez off of my basketball team. That's my dream.
So you are done with him.
Yeah. I think ultimately the Bucks, it was exposed here. It was exposed in the regular season. I think in the playoffs, they still have a chance. You can't just go by regular season records. Look at the West Coast with the Suns and the T-Wolves. But the team is way too old you got to move on from a lot of people that were just unplayable against a fast-paced team with the Pacers.
Do you see them moving on from Chris Middleton at all or no?
No.
Okay. I didn't know, like,
give that man a statue. Oh
okay.
my goodness.
I didn't know,
love
like,
him.
where we're at with the Bucks
Mhm.
roster because, like, so 2 disappointing first round exits
Yep.
can result in, like, fans being like, "Oh god, it's time. Hit the reset." And, like, you can't hit the reset with Giannis. You can't with
Exactly.
especially with him and Dame on the same team.
Mhm.
Like, you can't do that right now. So, I mean, you might hate me on this. I think they might need to move on from Bobby. I think he's
Oh no,
becoming
I agree.
okay.
Wholeheartedly.
Okay, I think
Wholeheartedly.
he's becoming Lance Stevenson, where
Yep.
he's, like, becoming a distraction from the team, and I think it's time. Great player, he's a good player,
Yeah. The
but
moment
he's becoming a distraction.
he had I as much as I would love to, he had a nice 29-point game that I won't call a fluke, because he was just hitting things that I didn't think were gonna be hit. Him getting ejected 9 minutes into, I think it was the game afterwards, really was the nail in the coffin for most people, where it's like, all right, like you can't be doing, like, your team needs you right now and you're doing this. We saw it even when they won the finals, the iconic moment where he just like full on legs straightened out, running down the court, and even Chris Middleton literally during the game be like, calm something down.
So you guys want Grant Williams?
No, we don't want that still. But yeah, I would love to get more into the Bucks off season, but
And we'll do a longer, like, once the
mhm.
season's over, we'll do a
Yeah.
longer, like, podcast of, like, what we would like from all of our teams or what we would like from NBA teams to do. But
Yes.
unfortunately, the Bucks did lose.
Yep.
Pascal Siakam, I will say, impressed me a little bit. And you know what? Shout out Miles Turner. That dude has been on that team forever. And I swear every year he has been in, like, trade deadline rumors and he's survived every one. So, and he might annoy a couple people. And I mean, I can see why he can annoy some fan bases. But that dude somehow has survived every trade rumor and now has finally gotten his first round series win in his career, as well as pretty much everybody on that Pacers team. And it's over when TJ McConnell is going to go off. So there's nothing much you can do. But
Bucks killer.
but moving on to the final Eastern Conference first round, Knicks and Sixers. I'm not going to lie. After game 1, I thought it was going to be a sweep. I thought it was over, and it was for one moment and one moment only. Joel Embiid's first dunk attempt since returning from his knee injury, where he lobbed it off the glass. Who did he dunk it on? Do you remember?
I don't. I know there was like 3 people around him though, and he just went over them.
It just
over 2 of them in one play.
And he went down right away, and I was like, dude. And I knew when he did it, I was like, this is going to be so dumb. And I didn't realize that it was his first dunk attempt since returning from his injury. And I was like, of course, that should be your sign that you should not be dunking the basketball. And but they were able to make it a 6-game series, and I was a little shocked that he was even playing all 6 games. Dude literally was like playing with one eye. I don't know if you saw that he couldn't even blink out of his left eye. It was some medical condition, it sounds like, that he had. But what were your reactions to this series? I think it's more of just people finally realizing, or people finally admitting that Jalen Brunson is an unbelievable basketball player. And I'll be on the front page that will admit that I was one of the people that thought him signing with New York was the dumbest thing ever for New York, based off of how much money he was getting. Now I can't say anything against him.
I will say, especially, I guess with I'll speak on the Sixers first. I think the biggest thing they can go away from the series feeling good about is obviously Tyrese Maxey.
Dude is a dog.
Being a baller. Unfortunately, this is the last year on his rookie contract, so he will be getting paid, I fully expect.
It'd
And
be a total Sixers move if they just didn't
that would be
sign it.
hilarious. That'd be hilarious. But they're gonna have a lot of free money with Tobias Harris leaving. So there you go.
You think that's over?
Oh yeah, no. I've been on the Tobias Harris hate train for a little bit now, and let me tell you, that last game, oh my goodness, that was the epitome of why I think he's not that good. But yeah, anyway, I think though, I give Joel Embiid a lot of crap. I will say he is not even. I don't think he performed even that great. I think most people would agree with that. What game was that? When they barely squeaked it out in overtime. I think he had 10 turnovers that game. It was bad.
Yeah,
I
he
think
almost averaged 5 turnovers a game in the
Yeah.
playoffs.
It was rough. And so the thing though that I don't want to give him too much crap, that Bell's palsy condition is no joke. Like he looked miserable. And yeah, like you mentioned, even with coming off of an injury already and then having those two things at once, like I can't imagine trying to play through it. I'm surprised the 76ers let him play through both those.
I was surprised he wanted to.
Yeah.
I honestly gained a lot of respect for Joel Embiid during this series because like most players, I'm sorry, whether they want to admit it or not, if they were in that situation, they'd be like, nah, I can't, no matter what, because especially if you're a 7 seed and let's say you lose game 1 and you're like, okay, it's not worth it. I just call it because that was not exactly how we envisioned this going, and it's just not going to work out. But Brunson, dude, 35, almost 36 points a game and 9 assists. It wasn't that he was almost getting 40 points a game. It was the fact that he was still also putting up 9 assists. This dude is out here. I mean, I think I heard them comparing his stats to Oscar Robertson and his performances back in the Plummer era, but still, like the fact that we're even seeing that is unbelievable from a guy that's like, what? How tall is he? Like 6'1"?
6'1", 6'2". Probably closer to 6'1". I mean, he's probably listed 2 inches taller than he's supposed to be. So
unbelievable. And I mean, they're doing this all without Julius Randle.
Yeah. I am curious on if that speaks more to Julius Randle than the rest of the Knicks squad. That's something I would love to get more into another time. But I do agree. Like, it is impressive regardless. Like, to have to shake up your roster like they did. I mean, getting rid of RJ, bringing in OG, a move that I did not like personally because it also got rid of IQ. But they proved me wrong in that sense. But yeah, it's impressive to see because we even mentioned in our kind of preview podcast about how, I think I picked the Knicks and you picked the Sixers, but we both commented on like, man, Brunson's going to have to go off, and he went off. And also the rest of the team stepped up a lot. Like Josh Hart stepped up. Dante stepped up. He had that. I think it was game 1 or game 2 that he hit that huge 3 at the end of the game. That was nuts. But yeah,
the New York Wildcats, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Nova Knicks, baby.
I'm telling you, dude. Those 2 series, the Bucks and Pacers and Knicks and Sixers, the game deciding thing about both of those series was offensive rebound. Nembhard was unbelievable on the glass for the Pacers a couple times. And then, I mean, you can name a Knick and they were involved in the offensive glass against the Sixers, which, I mean, you're doing that against an MVP candidate in Joel Embiid, which, I mean, he's not a candidate this year due to the new minimum playing rule, but still, these Knicks are for real. These I don't know if I consider the Pacers for real yet, but they're definitely scary. I know you hate them.
They're the worst team in the playoffs. I'll say it right now, man. Like, all me joking and bias included, but this is also just straight facts. It took them 6 games to eliminate a team that was missing a guy that averaged over 40 points against them during the regular season.
And I mean, they
6 games.
They lost to the Bucks, right? Without both Giannis
and Dame. Yes. Embarrassing.
So if it was Pacers versus anybody else in the Eastern Conference Finals, are you taking the field?
Oh, easily. Yeah. I take the Magic in 5.
Which, I mean, I don't see the Pacers getting past the Knicks anyways,
no. This Knicks team I think Pacers aren't that good. This Knicks team looks way too good. That's kind of the thing that I'm also like, not backdraft too much. Last comment I'll make about it for the night. But if the Bucks would have won, this series would have gone so poorly. It would have been miserable. Probably would have risked Giannis being more hurt, more injured, Dame potentially aggravating his Achilles even more. It's probably a good thing at the end of the day. So, yeah, go New York, go New York, go.
I mean, the Celtics are still in it.
All right, man. We already know how that's going.
But that's pretty much a little recap of the Eastern Conference. Just to remind people, Celtics and Heat. Celtics won 4-1. Knicks and Sixers. Knicks won 4-2. Bucks and Pacers. Pacers won 4-2, and then the Magic and Cavaliers are going to face each other in Game 7. Do you have the Cavaliers pretty much winning this in Game 7?
Probably.
That's probably who I'm going to lean towards. Just because I'd give home court advantage the benefit of the doubt, as well as the fact that they've been here before, and the Magic are very, very young to the playoff experience. Western Conference, I feel like it's going to be a little easier getting through some of these. I mean, Pelicans don't have Zion, so there's really not much to talk about. And the Thunder were just the better team. Thunder defeated the Pelicans in 4 games. They move on. Timberwolves and Suns. I mean, well, we won't. Do you want to focus much on this matchup? I don't really think there was much to talk about.
There's not much to talk about it. I was shocked though. Like I thought it was going to be way more competitive. But
the Suns won 3-0 in the series during the regular season.
Yep, they won during the season, and like it just. I think the number one thing that like I'm interested to talk about in the future more is just the excuses out of a certain player's camp, like immediately after the series was up. I think is very, very telling about where the Suns might be next year. It's not a great place. Not a great place. So,
and I will say, watching that series, I have fallen in love with this Minnesota Timberwolves team. They are so fun to watch, and it's not even their top 3 players in Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, or Rudy Gobert. Jaden McDaniels.
They got KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels.
Dude, I'm telling you, when coaches always preach players that do the little things are the ones that help you win titles and all that. Jaden McDaniels and even Alexander Walker, those two are such a huge part of this Minnesota Timberwolves team that like if you stop them, you have a better chance of winning than if you stop either just Anthony Edwards or just Cat or just Rudy Gobert. Stopping the supporting cast. Mike Conley's had a great playoffs really for his age and where he's at in his career. Stopping the supporting cast of the big 3. I guess I don't know if they really are considered a big 3, but they're a trio, whether people want to admit it or not. Naz Reid has had some good performances. If you can stop the supporting cast of this Timberwolves team, I think you have a better chance of winning than stopping just one of those trio of of Edwards, Anthony Towns, and Gobert.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they're kind of like one of those teams where it's like, I mean, you can say this about any NBA team, but I think more so at this point, it's like, Anthony Edwards is going to get his, like regardless of what you do. He's going to be shooting that ball 30 times if he's not scoring, and he's going to end up scoring one way or another. And even, I mean, with Cat, I mean, he's going to find his shot in one way or another, but he's even someone that it's like you mentioned, like even if he's not playing well, everyone else around him will be able to step up. I mean, even like Rudy Gobert. I mean, one of the concerns like with the Jazz was like, the connection between Mitchell and Gobert. I feel like he's able to just find like his spots so much better now for whatever reason. Probably
I think it's because he doesn't have to be the second guy.
That's definitely a big part.
Because Edwards is number 1, but like honestly, I think even Cat's like I don't have to be number 2 every game. It's depending on the matchups, and that's what makes this team work so well. Is that like everybody realizes is Edwards is number 1. Who's going to be number 2 for this game? And it doesn't have to be the same guy every game. I mean, they have 7 people almost averaging 10 points a game. They have 6 people averaging over 10 points a game, almost 7 averaging 10 points a game. And this team has been so impressive to watch. And really, while they have some great veterans, they're really young still.
Yeah, they got a really good split, especially. I mean, when you got someone like, I mean, even with their veterans, it's like the one guy that'll probably have to look to replacing is Mike Conley, and like that's still. I'm not trying to say like Mike Conley doesn't have an impact because he has a tremendous impact on just like his leadership and being a great teammate. But it's like if that's all you got to replace is a good pass first point guard, it's like you can find those.
You got Monte Morris on the
somewhere.
bench.
Literally though. So yeah.
So Timberwolves move on.
Yeah.
And I mean, we will definitely have longer conversations about the Suns and the future of that franchise. And maybe more specifically, the legacy of certain players on that team.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people have been talking about whether or not legacies have been affected in that series because of how their careers have been since leaving a championship team. And you can put pieces together of who I'm talking about. Which one do you want to talk about first? The one that ended tonight or the one that ended earlier this week between the LA teams?
Let's do the one that ended tonight. I feel like we could talk a little bit longer about the other one.
Okay. So the Mavericks and Clippers actually just wrapped up their series tonight. Mavericks won the series 4-2, won tonight 114-101 versus the Clippers. The Clippers lost Kawhi Leonard earlier in the series. Just another year, Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers just can't finish the season together because of injuries or whatever reason. And it sucks because I think Kawhi Leonard, this regular season was the most he's ever played. And then the postseason starts and he gets hurt right away.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I mean, you're a huge Mavericks guy. The Mavericks have been fun to watch as too. I want to see the Timberwolves face the Mavericks in the conference finals. I think the matchup is going to be really fun. And who knows like where that would go. And I will say this right now. I've been pretty much a Kyrie hater since even while he was probably playing for the Celtics. I really didn't enjoy him. He just was an issue, drama queen, toxic on and off the court. I don't know what happened or what. I don't know if like Mark Cuban like sat him down and went, okay, just ball. Just ball. That's all we need you to do. Yeah. And he's been balling. I mean, he's averaging 26 points a game in the postseason so far. And being a huge asset to this Mavericks team that I feel like could make a deep run in this playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Luka's doing Luka things. That's always expected. Yep. Like you said, Kyrie's always going to be balling. Like having I think that's the thing that's crazy. I mean, when you thought about him on the Cavs, when you think about him now, having Kyrie Irving as your second option is just incredible because he can do whatever he wants to score. Yep. Ultimately. Like he can make a dribble move, get past anybody. He can shoot well.
And I'll say I didn't think it was going to work. Mm-hmm. I didn't think him and Luka was a good combination because they both need the ball in their hands and they've found a way to make it work, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think overall, I think I saw like some stat like Derek Lively, his impact defensively has been crazy where it's like the Clippers, I think were expected to shoot like shoot under 20% from like field goal range just in general when he was like the primary defender, which is absurd. Like that amount of impact just does not happen, especially in a guy that's a rookie. I think that was the big piece because I think that's the biggest concern with the Mavs that even like, Chase, who isn't here, but has mentioned multiple times, it's just like they just don't really have a big guy to like do things, but he's stepping up.
Like I said at the beginning of the year, I feel like that he's going to go down as one of the better draft picks in terms of where he was sent to because he fits so well what the Mavericks needed at the time when they drafted him. And I mean, he's performing really well, averaging right around, I think, 1.2 blocks a game, like you mentioned on the defensive end, while also almost averaging 9 points a game and 5.6 rebounds. So he's going to be a big part. I mean, Luka's almost averaging a triple-double, but like that's almost expected at this point for them. I will say that it is a little shocking to see how much Luka does for this team, I guess, when you look at the numbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, like when you watch it, it's like obvious that he's the number one guy and it's not even close, but like only 3 people on their team are averaging double digits this postseason, which is not, most teams it'd be like, okay, that might be a cause for concern, but this team works so well together. And a lot, again, it goes through Luka, but like everybody kind of accepts their role and helps Luka out in the ways that will benefit them as the playoffs continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other big piece too for them has just been, I mean, I think an accusation that's thrown around a lot, just in general. I mean, going as far as to say that Luka Doncic is a traffic cone on defense, and also just the other subtle, just like he's not that good of a defender. But his defense has been pretty spot on, and like he's taken on like big assignments where it's like he was guarding, guys like PG, and was doing well, doing really well, which I think kind of surprised most people. And then I think he even got asked about it, and he's like, well, it's playoff basketball. Like, regardless what people want to say, kind of like during the regular season, it's like now's the time to like, you got to shut them down regardless. Doesn't matter what you got to do. You just got to do it. So,
And I tell you what, it's crazy to think that this team at one point was dealing with a interesting player in Grant Williams. Now they have PJ Washington, who
third best scorer,
is having a great performance. Yeah, Grant Williams wouldn't have been the third best scorer on this team in the playoffs. I think he's PJ Washington's averaging around 10 points, a little over 10 points a game for the Mavericks, who move on and will play that Thunder team that swept the Pelicans in the first round. And then we have the other LA team who dropped the ball against the Nuggets. 4-1 was the final in that series. I mean, they were close games. LA was there, man. LA was, and I don't support. Trust me, everybody knows I'm a Lakers hater, but they were right there. I said it at the beginning of the playoffs or right before the playoffs. The Lakers need to go through the Nuggets first to just get that off their back, because it's worse to go through this whole thing knowing that you're going to play Jokic at some point. So you might as well just get it over with. And they got close. I mean, if it wasn't for Jamal Murray having 2-game winners, we could be either still talking about this series going on, or the Lakers may have won.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think there's like some stat. I think this is what it is, but it's like the Nuggets had the lead for like 9 total minutes or something like that. It might be more than that, but it's just like, how do you win 4-1 having the lead for such a short amount of time? Like, it just is crazy to me. Both on one end of just like the Lakers melting, like offensively going on droughts, defensively just not getting the spots, not switching properly, things like that. And the Nuggets just all of a sudden another one too. I think MPJ was scoring like 22 a game on like 50 40, not 50 40 90. He is not a great free throw shooter, surprisingly, but like he just would make anything and everything. It was incredible. I don't know how. And then Jamal Murray would go 1 for 18, and then all of a sudden go off in the last 4 minutes of a game, and then they'd win. It's like, holy cow, man. It was. I'm not even a Lakers. Similarly, I'm not a Lakers fan. I don't hate them nearly as much, and like I'll cheer for them. I cheer for them this series. I don't know how people do it, man. Like, to get owned that many times is impeccable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And man, I thought the Lakers had a good roster that would set them up for a decent postseason run. And I mean, like we mentioned, these games were close, and the Nuggets weren't necessarily in the lead all that often. And yet, even though they were close, certain players struggled big time for the Lakers. I mean, D'Angelo Russell, man, I am someone that is like, D'Angelo Russell is good. No matter what people say, he's a good basketball player. In this playoffs, no, he was not good. I mean, I think he was shooting 38% from the field, and I think that was worse. The worst. No, sorry, Gabe Vincent was the worst field goal, shooting 25%. But he is right on pace for being one of the worst shooters on this Lakers roster, and he's supposed to be their one of their sharpshooters.
Yeah.
I think he's not going to be on the Lakers next year. I'm going to be interested to see how many of these players are actually on the Lakers next year. AD is obviously, I feel like, going to be back. But the Lakers did fire sorry, I'm blanking his first name. Coach Ham.
Darv, slam dunk Ham.
Yeah, they fired Ham this morning. I think they're going to get Tyronn Lue.
That'd be crazy. That would be a crazy, crazy turn right there.
I mean, I think the Clippers are going to make a lot of moves this offseason. I have seen things that Paul George might be going back to Indiana as a possibility. I don't know what Indiana is going to give up for that to be possible, but if that happens, it's going to be just Kawhi and James Harden and Russell Westbrook. But I'm sorry, that big three is not going to be a big three that can compete for a title. So if I'm Tyronn Lue, I see the writings on the wall. This is going to be a rough offseason for the Clippers. They're getting a new stadium though. Good for them. But I tell you what, even though the Lakers are kind of in a mess too, you got the GM. You might as well. I think they're going to get a big. I don't know who, I don't know when, and I don't know from where, but the Lakers are going to make a move that puts them right back in the title conversation. Because as long as LeBron is in LA, the Lakers are going to be title contenders.
Yeah. I do think that is the big question though, because LeBron reportedly.
Do you think he's going to leave?
I honestly have no clue. I genuinely have no clue. I think a lot of those answers will kind of come out as more is learned about the upcoming draft and like where and if Bronny gets taken.
I'm telling you, the Celtics should trade up and just draft him.
See that's maybe a strategy. That's maybe a strategy. But yeah, it's like I think honestly, I think LeBron. So let me preface this first. So LeBron, very, very much so. I think most to all people would agree, does a lot to he's really good at media things. He's really good at getting attention because he's LeBron James, right? And he does a good job of handling it and being able to like build it up, right?
I don't know about handling it all the time, but yes.
I do think in this scenario, though, I think he is handling it very well. Where he's like, I'm not speaking. Like, he got asked literally like right after the game, like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm not doing this right now. Like, we're not doing this.
I hate that players have to talk after a loss.
Yeah.
Imagine having to do that after a bad day at work. Someone just puts a mic in your face and starts asking about your performance.
So, why did you guys lose out there? Like, oh, thanks. But yeah, so I am intrigued because I think this time like it is something that he's probably like very, very, very much thinking about. Where he's like, I really don't know what I want to do. The dude's just about 40 and has a kid that's coming into the league. Be a crazy, crazy thing to be able to say that we all witnessed. Who knows where he's going to be? Who knows? And I think it's also really hard for. I mean, you could say this for both LA teams, but I think more so at the Lakers. The reason it's so hard, I think, is because it's such a team that has such high expectations that they're going to get an entire new roster every single year. And if they lose LeBron James, that will be a very, very, very tough thing to do, is build an entire roster from scratch around AD. And I mean, AD played well. He did his thing. There were a couple times where
you want a hot take? If LeBron leaves, they need to get rid of AD. If LeBron leaves, I'm blowing it all up. There's not if LeBron leaves, there is not one player on that roster that is suiting up for the Lakers next year. If I was the GM. Because these are all people that LeBron wanted, whether he wants to admit it or not. And if he's not going to be there anymore, I'm hitting the reset button, because that next draft class, not this year's draft class, but next year's draft class has the potential to be very, very good.
Yeah.
Just to say the least.
That is true. But yeah, I think it's tough.
Do you think the Clippers are going to move on from Kawhi, or do you I think he's kind of stuck there.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, they're kind of at the point now where I don't think it's quite everything. I have to relook at kind of what all they've done since he's been there. I think a lot of the effects of this continuous build over the past few years, is kind of starting to get wrapped up outside of, getting rid of Shea, which is proving to be a terrible idea. So dumb. But I think, especially, I mean, he's getting up there in age too. I'm pretty sure he's older than Jimmy Butler, or at least similar in age. And so they don't, I'm sure they probably don't have a lot of their picks owned. And so it's like, well, we kind of just got to keep trying until it eventually works. It won't, in my opinion. But I don't know, man. I think if PG leaves, I think you kind of had to think more like, all right, like maybe not, maybe it's time.
Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron.
Oh, gosh.
You have to pick one of them that will make one more finals run.
I thought you were going to ask me they all end up on the same team. I was like, what?
No. That's not even possible. That doesn't even seem logical. One of Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron. You have to put money down on one person, one of those three, to make one more finals appearance.
Is it crazy to still say LeBron? Like, genuinely?
No, because that's who I would have put my money on. If I'm being honest, it would be like LeBron 1, probably Kawhi 2, and then Jimmy Butler 3. Yeah. And that's not hating on Jimmy Butler. I just don't think he was never like a consistent all-star. So when his peak ends, which I think we are starting to see the cracks of his peak ending, it's not going to be like LeBron or Kawhi, who are still putting up decent numbers. I mean, LeBron, what he's doing at his age is unbelievable, but I don't think he's going to have a slow turn like Kawhi may have when his peak's over. He's going to go down quickly because Jimmy Butler, I'm sorry, is not as good as those other two.
Yeah, it's also tough because that's the insane thing about LeBron is just the amount of wear and tear that has gone on his body, and he still continues to do it. I don't know if there's a single human being or at least person in the league that will probably be able to do that same thing. And I think kind of the proof is with Jimmy. I mean, when you look at that bubble run, dude was getting ran into the ground, and it's been 4 years since then. And it's still happening, and he didn't play this time. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know how LeBron does it. And I think Jimmy's kind of learning about that. Like, oh, dang.
I'm excited for our off season after the finals are over to kind of like preview where teams are going to go from here. Lakers are definitely a team. If LeBron stays, I would say watch out for when it comes to the Trae Young sweepstakes. Any team that is able or doesn't have a complete filled roster. I don't think the Celtics are going to ever go after Trae Young, especially if they win the title this year. They want to ever try to shake up that roster. Maybe if something happens in the next round, that might be a possibility, but Trae Young is going to be on everybody's radar, especially if you have a GM in your front office. And watch out to see who they get as a head coach, because I feel like that's a big indicator if LeBron is going to stay. If Tyronn Lue is a head coach there in a couple of weeks, I would feel very confident that they're going to be keeping LeBron.
Los Angeles Lakers head coach Mike Budenholzer. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Dude, Chase sent me a tweet about Rajon Rondo being a possibility, and like, as it was a meme, but like, part of me is like, Rondo might be a good NBA coach.
JJ Redick, get LeBron and JJ head coach and player have a podcast together.
You heard that? I was gonna say you heard that theory, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Do you think JJ? Do you think JJ will be a head coach next year?
I hope not. Like I'm not. I don't think he'd be a bad coach. It's just like I honestly don't know, man. Like, yeah, I think he's a little too off-putting for a lot of people. Probably says a lot about how sensitive a lot of NBA players are when it comes to coaching, which is a topic in of itself. But
I think that and if he was the Lakers head coach, him and LeBron will hate each other by the end of it.
That makes sense.
I don't know. But here, let's do our quick predictions for this round, the semifinals, as we're going here. I think we have 5 minutes on our recording before we have to sign off. Thunder Mavericks. Me personally, I'm going to go Mavericks. I think that the experience is going to outweigh the youth. Thunder, what are they? Average age is 23. So they have a future Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
It's just that I think that the youth isn't going to outweigh the experience in this one. And I think Luka and Kyrie are going to be able to lead the Mavericks to a postseason run into the conference finals and maybe even the finals. I think this game will probably go. I actually see this game going 6 or 7 games. So give me Mavericks in 6.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna go Mavericks in 7, probably Mavericks 7. I think it'll be a nice competitive series, but they
Nothing
just
really
got
to add.
they
I
just
mean,
got the experience there.
you've been on the Mavericks all year, anyways. But Timberwolves Nuggets. I want to get your opinion on this first.
I don't want to do the same thing I did last time and be like, well, I want this to happen, so I'm gonna pick it. But I have to. I gotta rep the brand here. Give me the T-Wolves in 7. Another competitive series.
I'm gonna go Nuggets in 5. I don't know. I think the Nuggets are going to find a way to sneak out victory after victory like they've been all postseason. Jamal Murray will turn up in the fourth quarter. That's it. And Jokic will find a way to get his Nuggets a win.
I do think really quickly, I think there's kind of 2 worlds that you can, and I mean, it's kind of like, well, duh, Hunter, like that's how any take works. But there's kind of 2 worlds where it's like, okay, you see the Nuggets not having a lead and then winning as either extremely concerning, as in their matchup will not allow that when it's not the LA Lakers, or extremely encouraging in that they will find a way to win no matter what.
Chestnut checkers.
Yeah. So depending on if you're a glass half full or a glass half Nikola Jokic sucks kind of person, you can choose your opinion.
Pacers Knicks.
Knicks in 4.
Yeah, Knicks. I'll go gentleman's sweep. I think it'll be Knicks in 5. And then honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I think I'd take the Celtics in 4.
Oh, yeah.
Celtics in 4 and 5. So we both have Celtics Knicks in the conference finals. We both have the Mavericks in the conference finals. But you have the Timberwolves and I have the Nuggets. We will definitely recap these games. If anything big happens, we'll hop onto a podcast as well. But overall, real quick before we sign off, how would you grade the first round? Because honestly, it's a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I think overall underwhelming, just because like I think especially injuries suck. Like injuries suck. I'm not one to like discount rings, except maybe this year. Just because I'm biased. But like overall, like the amount of rings around injuries this postseason has just been like, man, this sucks. Like there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah.
Yeah,
there's been some like exciting moments in games though.
It just sucks that if the Celtics do win this year, that it's the year that all these injuries happen. So nobody like already.
You best believe I'm making a list right now, bro.
Yeah, the asterisk is already being written. Like, watch. The Cavs will win, but Donovan Mitchell like tweaks his ankle and is out the first 3 games. So the Celtics are up 3-0 or something like that. Exactly. And so, of course, that would just happen. But out of 10, a 10 ranking, honestly, I'd still give it probably a 7-2, 7-2-5 because there's been some good games, but like you said, some of these series weren't even like watchable.
Yeah. I agree. I'd go like 6 or 7 for sure.
Yeah. But that's pretty much all we have for this episode. We will be back probably next week at some time to talk a little bit about where the playoffs are at, big storylines, if anything happens outside of the game as well. But hopefully we can get the whole crew back at some point. It's just Hunter and I the last couple episodes. There will be another Sports Nerds episode out probably next week with Dawson Livingston and myself talking a little NFL football. But for Hunter Rose and the crew that are usually with us, I'm Brock Beirman saying so long, and we will see you next week.